Now we'll see the various terminologies are going to be used in big data environment in detail. So in this terminology related activities, the few concepts are like we'll discuss about memory related analytical activity, in database processing, symmetric multiprocessing environment related to hardware accessing, that means main memory and hardware, how the paralleling activity is going to be carried out in big data environment, that is parallel processing of operations, how distributed environment is going to be implemented in order to store and access the data, and another architecture like share and nothing architecture, and we will see a few algorithms like CAP theorem and Bayes theorem. Those two algorithms are used in the resource allocation. Now we will see in detail about each and every environment. Now we look at here in memory analytics. That means if you look at the name itself, it is related to the hardware concept. So when we are trying to access or perform big data analytical operations in real-time environment, while doing processing activities or analytical activities, primary memory or main memory is going to be placed a vital role. That means when we are trying to access huge amount of data, in order to calculate and to perform the computations of the data, so primary memory and main memory is going to be placed a vital role. So in this in-memory analytics, we will see the role and working of a primary memory. So data access from a non-volatile storage. So as we know, non-volatile natured memory devices are RAM memory, random access memory. So random access memory, we can also call it as primary memory or main memory. Now how best and how effective primary storage is going to be used, and how much amount of primary storage we are providing to the hardware as a support of data processing or computation will give the better results. That means a high-end big data system or environment expects high level primary memory. That means high level RAM memories will play a crucial role. It is in non-volatile nature. So in this in-memory analytics, we are trying to observe the role of RAM memory, how RAM memory is going to be used, how RAM memory will play a computational related activities. If RAM memory is insufficient in size, how results are going to be affected. So here in-memory analytics will play a crucial role with the RAM memory, random access memory. We can also call it as a primary memory. And second one, in database processing. That means this is related to the secondary storage. First we have seen the primary storage, that is non-volatile in nature. When it comes to the secondary storage, it is used to store large amount of data. Primary memory is not supported with the large storage aspect, whereas secondary storages are used to store large amount of data. Now here we are looking what are the various databases are used to perform data processing. As we discussed earlier, we are having RDBMS related concepts or storage devices where we can do or we can store structured related information. Like when we are storing a large amount of data, data has to undergone with this ETL operations, or we have to perform ETL operations on the data, that is extraction, transformation and loading. And the processor data is going to be used to perform basic OLTP and OLAP operations, online transaction processing and online analytical processing. So these are the end user level activities. So whenever we are trying to perform analytical related activities, data should be in a proper format and data should be in a proper processed format. So in database environment will mainly focuses on what are the concepts that we are using in order to store and process the data. So in this what we are discussing here, we are seeing OLTP related activities, performing ETL operations on the data in order to store data in a large scale, that is either in a enterprise data warehouse or in a data mart. So data mart and data warehouse are similar in each other. Data mart is a smaller in size compared to data warehouse. Data marts are going to be used department specific or individual related operations are going to be used, whereas data warehousing is considered for a whole organization. Now, while performing ETL operations, what we are expecting? We are performing some data pre-processing activities like data cleaning, data integration, data transformation, data selection. These are the basic data pre-processing activities are going to be performed on the data before using for analytical activities. And now we will see the symmetric multiprocessor system. That means it is also related to the hardware support to a big data environment. So when we are having more than one processor, we can call it as a multiprocessor. Now when we are having more than one processor, how the processors are connected with each other and how the processors will share existing resources like memory, IO devices, and how the memory is going to be shared among all the processors. If any failure occurs to any one of the processor, how the processor are going to be handled is going to be discussed in this information. That means how the processors have full access to use IO devices and memory related activities are going to be discussed in detail. Let's have a look on this diagram. So in this diagram, here we are having n number of processors like processor 1, processor 2, and we are having n number of processors. Each and every processor is associated with individual memory. We are calling it as a cache memory. That means processor 1 is associated with cache 1, processor 2 associated with its cache information. Now these are the, let us take the cache 1 is primarily and mainly accessed with the processor 1 only. That means the data which is required for the processor 1 is provided or stored only in cache memory. You can say it is a private memory to the processor 1. Like that, every processor is having its own separate cache memory. But for all the processors, we are providing one main memory. So there is a common shared memory called main memory. That main memory can be shared and accessed by all the processors by using arbiter bus architecture. Now this arbiter bus architecture will act as a system bus. Now the system bus is equipped with or it is a combination of 3 or 4 subparts. Like a system bus may have a data bus or a data lines, and the system bus is having address lines. Next, it will have a control lines and power lines. Some system buses will have only 3 parts. That means data bus, address bus, and control bus. Control bus itself will have some power distribution lines, whereas in advanced system buses or data cables, they will have separate lines like data bus, address bus, control bus, and power lines. That means whatever red color arrow that we are observing here, it is a system bus. Now the system bus is communicated with the main memory. That means each and every processor can communicate with main memory via this system bus. Now this is the basic architecture of symmetric multiprocessor. Now there is a drawback in this environment. If this system bus fails, let us assume we are having only one system bus, or one system bus is used to connect all the n processors. If this system bus fails due to any hardware failure, what happens to the connection with the processors and memory? So there is no connection. The connection is going to be lost with the processors and main memory. Now the solution is we can go for multi-processor system with asymmetric in nature. Now here there is another drawback is in symmetric environment, all devices will share only one common clock cycle or system clock. Clock cycle or system clock. That means each and every processor will receive the instructions and each and every processor will execute the instructions based on a single common shared system clock cycle. That can also be replaced by providing in asymmetric nature. Each and every processor can be assigned with a separate or unique clock cycle or clock pulses. Next one, that is alternative for that symmetric operation. This is the massive parallel processing. Here in symmetric multiprocessing we discussed two drawbacks. If the single system bus fails or the single system was corrupted due to any hardware failure or any malfunctioning, all processors will lose the connection with the main memory. Now this can be replaced or can be solved by imposing massive parallel processing. Refers to the coordinated processing of programs by number of processors are working in parallel. That means more than one system bus is going to be used and connected so that every processor can use any one of the system bus which is available. If one system bus fails, it will have an alternative of one more system bus. So here what happens in this massive parallel processing environment, more number of processors will be in working condition in parallel environment. Even though one of the processor fails, remaining processors will share the data or work assigned to the processors. Now another terminology which is related to the hardware aspect of big data, that is shared nothing architecture. That means what we are going to share, what we are not going to share in a hardware related environment. So in this shared nothing concepts, there are three common types. We can use all devices with a common shared memory. That means all processors we can use or we can connect in with a shared memory. Or second option, we can connect all the processors or devices using a shared disk concept. In first case we are using shared memory. In second case we are using shared disk. In third case we are not sharing anything. That means all shared devices are in a temporary nature or in volatile nature. That means in shared nothing architecture, we can select any one of the aspect while creating a hardware support for big data environment. Shared memory, shared disk or shared nothing. So in shared memory architecture, what we are using one common central memory which is shared by all the multiprocessors. So that we have seen earlier. That means there is one common main memory which is going to be shared by all the processors. Let us take here we are having processor 1, processor 2 and processor N. So all processors will share one single common main memory. So that is called shared memory. When it comes to shared disk architecture, multiple processors share a common collection of disks while having their own private memory. That means there is a disk which is used to store the data. This disk is going to be shared by every processor and every processor is having its own memory. Like processor 1, its separate memory. Memory 2 associated with processor 2. That means every processor is having its own private memory. In addition to that, every processor can access a common shared disk. So this is another alternative of providing shared environment for big data analytics. And in shared nothing architecture, neither memory nor disk is going to be shared among the processors. Neither disk nor memory is going to be shared among the processors. Now how it will look like? So in this aspect, let's have a look at and the third aspect. Like every processor is having its own individual processing environment and memory, and it is having processor 2, it is having its own memory too. And these, let us have another one is processor 3 and memory 3 all the three are connected to with each other, but they are not sharing any memory or any disk. That means every processor is associated with a private memory, but they are not sharing. Whatever memory assigned to a processor is a private memory for every processor. They are connected to with each other, but they are not sharing either a disk or a memory. So this is called shared nothing architecture. Now another one is parallel computing and distributed computing. Now we'll see the differences between parallel computing and distributed computing. Now both approaches can be used in big data environment, but most preferably we'll go for distributed environment. Why we are choosing distributed computing? Let us see the differences. In parallel computing, all processors will share one common memory and they will access all the devices in parallel and they will access. Let us have here. In parallel computing, all processors may have access to a common shared memory to exchange information between the processors. That means this may look like this. Here we are having a common shared memory. Every processor can share the information with another processor by connecting with the memory. When it comes to distributed, each processor have its own private memory. That we will call it as a distributed memory instead of having a common memory. That means in distributed environment, every processor will have its a private memory like processor 2 is having its private memory and they can communicate it with a common bus architecture. So they are having their own private memory. Now we are calling it as a distributed memory. Now that is a difference. So in this distributed computing, each processor has its own private memory. Whereas in parallel computing, they are sharing only one common memory. Now why they are using either common memory or shared memory? They want to exchange the information among the processors. Now let's have a look on the architectural aspects of distributed computing and parallel computing. As we discussed earlier, in distributed computing, every processor is associated with its private memory. Here we are having 4 processors. Every processor is having its own private memory and all processors are communicating with each other. They are exchanging the information among the processors. Whereas in parallel computing, all processors are sharing one common memory. In this also, the processors are exchanging the information, but when it comes to parallel processing, there is a drawback here. If this memory fails, if the memory is available, is unable to access, all processors will lose the communication or connection with the processors. Whereas in distributed environment, if any one of the memory fails, let us assume this memory was not working, the connection has been lost, work will not be stopped because the work which was assigned to this processor can be shared to any one of the processor in order to complete the task. But whereas in parallel processing, it is not possible. Now we'll see the few differences between parallel and distributed system. In parallel computing, we are applying a tightly coupled environment. As we discussed in the previous slide, all processors will share a common memory. So there are a few common memory architectures, that unified memory architecture, non-unified memory architecture. And in distributed computing, all processors will have their private memory they are using for message passing, remote procedure call implementation of distributed shared memory. When it comes to the control aspect, there will be a common global clock is used to control all the processor and processor related instructions. So what they are using? Single instruction multiple data stream, multiple instruction and multiple data stream are the two concepts can be used. When comes to distributed computing, there is no global clock. That means every processor is embedded with its own synchronized clock pulse so that it can access or it can execute instructions which has been assigned to the processor. In control, we are having a common global clock for parallel computing, no global clock for distributed computing. When comes to the processor interconnection, here we can access or we can go for up to a terabits per second. We can imply either bus connection, mesh architecture, tree architecture or a network architecture in order to connect the devices. Now how the bus will look like it's a device 1 is connected with device 2 and device 3 is also connected with a common bus. So this is a single bus or a serial bus. So in mesh connection, all are connected with each other. That we can say it is most complex environment. Like P1 is connected with P2, P2 is connected with P3, P3 is connected with P1. When comes to distributed computing, we can go for up to maximum gigabytes per second. Here we can go for Ethernet or token ring, myriad network are the possible network interconnections in distributed environment. Another one is in parallel computing will mainly focuses on performance and mostly used for scientific computing. Whereas in distributed computing, performance is in the aspect of cost and scalability. We are looking into the concept of reliability and availability of the resources. So these are the 4 differences between parallel versus distributed computing. Next we'll see another algorithm which is related to the hardware aspects of big data environment. They are CAP theorem and Bayes theorem. Now we'll see the working of CAP theorem. The CAP theorem we can also call it as a Brewer's theorem. The CAP is a full form of consistency, availability and partition tolerance. Consistency, availability, partition tolerance. Now what is a consistency? Consistency implies that every read fetches the last write. Every read operation should fetch the last write. And when it comes to the availability implies that read and write always succeeded with each other. And related to the partition tolerance, if any network failure occurs, what is the performance of hardware and software which they are supporting? Now we'll see the consistency, availability, partition tolerance in detail. Let's have a look at here. The consistency, availability, partition tolerance are the 3 basic parameters, and we are calling it as a CAP theorem. That means you can let us say all the 3 are the services which are going to be offered by the hardware support or in big data environment. How consistency is going to be achieved, how availability is going to be achieved, and how partition tolerance is going to be achieved. Now among all the 3, at any time we can expect only 2 possible services. That means either we can expect consistency availability, consistency partition tolerance, availability partition tolerance, but not all the 3 is not possible. Now we'll see one by one how this CA, CP and AP are going to be implemented with each other. Look at here. So in this diagram, we will see what are the devices which they are offering services. If consistency and availability have been offered, we can call it as a RDBMS. That means RDBMS related databases will offer consistency and availability. If you are expecting consistency and partition tolerance, MongoDB, HBase, Redis are used to provide consistency and partition tolerance. When comes to availability and partition tolerance, Cassandra, DynamoDB are the various database tools which they are offering availability and partition tolerance. But there is no database which will offer all the three. Now have a look on this partition tolerance. So partition tolerance directly related to the hardware aspect. If any hardware or software failure occurs, if any hardware or software failure occurs, how the work is going to be handled? Look at here. Here we are having three nodes. This is node 1 and node 2 and in node 3. Let us assume in node 3 we are having some malfunctioning is happened. That means in this cluster, this node is not working properly. This condition states that the system continues to run despite the number of messages being delayed by the network between the nodes. Let us have a look how this can be viewed in our real-time examples. Whenever you want to check the account balance, here the customer want to check the account balance. Now here the available options are, he can check in the cluster like through ATM machine, in another network cluster using his mobile banking, or third option either by using missed call service. The customer want to see the account balance. The options are, he can go to the ATM machine, or he can check using mobile bank or internet banking, or third one is he can use the service called missed call service. If any one of the service fails, he will have two more alternatives. Let us say in third option the missed call service is not working. He can go to the ATM machine and he can check it. Nothing will happen. He will get the accurate balance. If ATM machine is not working, he can use mobile banking. That means among any one of the cluster, if any node is not working, services are not stopped to the customer. This is called partition tolerance. When it comes to consistency, let's have a look. This condition states that all nodes see the same data at the same time. Now what we are doing here, we are updating some information. Let us say here we are at the timestamp 103, we are a record related to a Pikachu has been updated. Let us say the account has been updated, the account has been credited with some amount. That information should be reflected in all the nodes. Let us assume this is a bank. In this bank, a person has been deposited an amount of 10K in his account at 10:10 a.m. in the morning session. Now this is a timestamp. Immediately, either by 10:10 or 10:11, that the reflection should be happen in all the nodes. That means immediately all nodes should have the same data. That is called all nodes see the same data at the same time. This is called consistency. Now let us assume if delay happens. If all the nodes are failed to access the same data, his balance is 0 rupees. It was credited with 10K. It was not updated in his ATM card. If he is trying to use his ATM card in a shopping site, definitely the card will be declined. He deposited at 10 a.m. and he done shopping at 10:15 or 10:20. If it was not updated immediately, he is unable to use his ATM card in spite of he is having balance in his account. This is called the consistency. Now we can't expect the consistency in milliseconds. We can expect at least in minutes, that has to be updated in seconds. And third one is availability of the resources. That means this condition states that every request gets a response, either success or failure. Let us assume our generalized example. If university results have been declared or any competitive exam results have been declared, due to heavy network traffic, if some student is trying to see his result, now what happened? If the connection is working properly, server is not busy, he will get the result. Let us say he succeeded. That means he is seen his result. If he is passed, he will happy. Now another student is trying to see his result at the same time. but server is not working properly, server is busy, definitely he'll get a message that server is busy or not working. Either success or failure, the server has to generate some message. If the request is success, student can see his result. If request is failed, student will see a message like not working or server busy. So if the request is success, he will see the requested information. If the request failed or server is busy, definitely he will see a message that is server is busy. So either for every request success or request failure, he or she will get a response immediately. So this is related to availability in CAP theorem. And finally we will see the Bayes theorem. So Bayes is another hardware related theorem or mechanism which is going to be used in real-time applications. It is contrast to the basic acid properties of RDBMS. Now we will see what is Bayes here. Bayes stands for basically available, that is the first aspect. BA stands for basically available, soft state, eventually consistency. So there are three services which are operating like CAP theorem. The first one is basic availability, soft state and eventual consistent. These are the three states this concept will offer while doing the activities in real-time applications. Now this Bayes is contrast to the traditional acid properties of RDBMS. So in traditional acid properties, what we are doing here, it will offer atomicity, consistency, isolation and durability, like atomicity, consistency, isolation and durability. So these are the initial services which are offered in traditional RDBMS concepts. Now these have been replaced with Bayes in big data environment, that is basic availability, soft state and eventual consistency. Now we will see these three with examples here. As we discussed earlier, it is contrast to the acid property. Now what is soft state, eventual consistency here in Bayes? So let us have a look at here. The first parameter is a basically available parameter. In basically available parameter, what is happening here? Let's have a look on 4 different nodes are here. At this node, the account holder Manoj's balance is 100 rupees. In remaining all the 3 nodes, the balance was updated, but he was not able to use the service. So in the same example you can take, there are 4 options are available. He can use an ATM machine to see his balance. He can go for a mobile banking, or he can use his internet app, or he can use his missed call service. So among all the 3, among 4, 3 are not working, but one node is working properly. That one node will give the answer to the customer, that is account balance is 100. So that is at any cost, at least one service or one node is available to service the customer. When it comes to the soft state, so soft state is related to updation of the data in all the nodes. Let us have, from the bank, the Manoj's account balance has been added with 100 rupees. That means this was happened only at the bank server. But this information was not updated in all the nodes. From the server node to one of the ATM network, the bank balance has been updated. If you look at carefully, in remaining all other nodes, the balance was not updated. That means among all the 4 nodes, only 2 are having accurate information, remaining 2 are not having accurate, they are having only the past information. But when the customer is trying to access his information from these 2 nodes, he will get only balance as 0. But realistically his balance is having 100 rupees. Now why this delay is happening? So this delay is happening that some microseconds of time is required to update the data in all the nodes. So that amount of time he has to wait. That is the only problem here. Soft state means from origin of the transaction to the end user level node, updation of the record or the data will require some microseconds or milliseconds of time. And third one is eventually consistency. Now eventually consistency, which is related to the timestamp for each and every activity. Now the Manoj account has been updated at a time of t seconds. Now at time t1 plus seconds, the Manoj account balance is again 100 rupees. That means it was at t seconds. After t plus 1 seconds, data was updated. In the previous slide, it was not updated because it requires some amount of time. Now in t plus 2, that is t plus 2 milliseconds of time, after 2 milliseconds of time, third network is also updated. And finally, after t plus 3 milliseconds of time, all nodes are having the accurate information. That means if the customer trying to access his balance from any one of the node, he will get the correct information. So that milliseconds of time is not considerable for a human being, it is considerable for a transaction related activities. So this is about Bayes' theorem. Now we'll see the questionnaires of this session. They are, what are the key questions to be answered by all organizations stepping into the analytics? That means when they want to enter into the analytical activities, what are the things that they have to consider? And next one, what is the predictive and prescriptive analysis? So differentiate what is predictive and prescriptive analytics with a suitable example. What are the major challenges of big data? So you have to describe all the challenges of big data with suitable examples. And differentiate various types of analytics like analytics 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0. Now let's have this small quiz here. See, here I have given 4 questionnaire. Every read fetches the most recent write. Second one is a non-failing node will return a reasonable response within a reasonable amount of time. What it can be called as. So if every read fetches every recent write, that we can call it as a consistency in the CAP theorem. Every non-failing node will return a reasonable response within a reasonable amount of time. We can call it as availability of the resource. CAP theorem can also be called as Brewer's theorem. System will continue to function even when network partition occurs. This is called partition tolerance. Now here we are having some matching aspect. Match the following. In column A we are having NLP, text analytics, UAMA, noisy unstructured data, data mining, noisy structured data and IBM. Just match with relevant value from the column B. So take your sufficient amount of time, find the answer. Now this is the answer. Let's have this small questionnaire here. List various types of digital data. Why an email placed in the unstructured category? What category will you place a CCTV footage into? You have just got a book issued from the library. What are the details about the book that can be placed in a RDBMS table? So these are some real-time examples. Which category would you place the consumer, complaints and feedback? That means what category of data it is. Which category will you place a web page in? Which category of data will you place a PowerPoint presentation? Which category will you place a Word document? These are all types of digital data related questionnaire. Let's have a look at this fill in the blanks. This fill in the blank related to the definition of big data. These are some fill in the blanks. See all the fill in the blanks and fill with the right answer. Differentiate or give examples of machine generated data and human generated data. So these are the differences of various machine generated data and human generated data. So you can get the complete information from this slide. Okay, thank you for this session.